Hi, it's Future Dawes. Thanks for tuning in to another episode of the Can podcast. This episode is a retell of the book called Book of Azreal and will contain spoilers that will ruin the whole book. So if you have any intentions to read this book and prefer to do so without knowing what actually happens, I recommend you skip this week's episode. Alright, consider yourself warned.
Welcome to the Casual Adventure Notes podcast, the Can podcast, lazy, easy listening about little life's adventures.
And lessons.
I'm Daz.
And I'm Debbie.
Hello. Should we start off with our palate cleanser today?
Yeah, let's do the one that's on top, which is 101 things I learned in law school.
Fun.
And I think I'm like near the end of being sick, as in like the congestion part. So hopefully I sound a little bit less nasally and more myself.
That's good.
I think you sound the same. I think you've also recovered as well.
Thanks.
So thank God we've put that chapter to an end now. All right, do you want to pick a number?
88.
Lucky 88. Does it even go up to 88?
Yeah, it's 101. So there would be 101.
Yes, that makes sense. It's all in the title. All right. Good one, because it's a short one. So this one is called Judges Are Biased. Judges and juries interpret facts through the lens of their own experiences. Although they may strive to be impartial, they cannot be completely aware of or completely put aside their biases. That's it.
I mean, that's true. That's almost like a human fact, I guess. It's just worth reminding everyone. Like, even if it's your job or you're supposed to remain, what's the word?
Neutral.
Yeah. You can't. Because as humans, you just naturally bring in your own experience.
Yeah, that's right. There's things that happen in one's life that will really resonate or trigger certain emotions of like empathy. So, for example, if you were bullied in school a lot and then you were a jury member of a case that involved bullying, I'm sure that you would have both an unconscious and conscious bias to the victim. And that would maybe sway your vote or judgment. So, yes, you're right. I think everyone's experiences means that there's some level of bias, even at the judge level as well. It's hard. You can't ever have someone that has absolutely zero experiences that would otherwise influence their, the way that they sort of perceive issues and situations, etc.
I think it's why it's important to always have like multiple people. Like, I assume that's why a jury exists, because it's like multiple people at random to provide.
I think so. I think I think there's certain court cases that involve juries, and there's some where it's just a single judge that makes the call or decision.
Yeah.
Like, I think I talked about this, like Judge Judy, for example. Like, if you watch those cases, she makes the decision, but I don't know, maybe she's been doing it for so long at this point, she doesn't really think too much about it. So maybe that makes her even more impartial.
This is actually a pretty good segue into our main course. Ask me what I've been obsessed with recently.
What have you been obsessed with lately?
So I have a few hobbies, which I've mentioned before, but it's impossible to kind of like be able to do all my hobbies at once just because time doesn't allow it. Like, when you balance like social life, work and all that stuff like that, it's actually hard to find free time to do everything. So I tend to do this thing where I fixate on certain hobbies at a point in time for a period of time, and then I switch. It's not planned or scheduled. It's just like whenever. So it's been pretty obvious in the last few episodes. I'm in my reading phase at the moment. A lot of fiction.
Reading era. Yeah.
I am. And I didn't just finish, but okay. So there's this book series. It's called, the first book, and what it's mostly commonly known as, is called the Book of Azreal. And I am so sorry if I butcher any of the pronunciation as I kind of talk about this book. because I'm just not very good at English and I'm trying to learn. But the Book of Azrael, Azreal,
Say that again.
Real, Azrael,
Spell it again. AZE.
Azreal.
For some reason, I just can't envision the word.
Azrael.
Anyways,
Anyways, that's how I'm pronouncing it. So the Book of Azrael. That's what it's most commonly referred to. But the actual series is called Gods and Monsters. Except when you look up Gods and Monsters, there's a million things called Gods and Monsters, so it might not come up. The Book of Azrael, or that series, is a dark romance fantasy by Amber V Nicole. It was first published in 2022 and it gained popularity on TikTok. So it's a BookTok book. And it's intended to have 7 books in total. And at the moment, there's only 3 books out with a 4th one already scheduled to come out next year in 2025. So it's not done, but there's a significant amount out. So when I say I finished it, I finished the 3 books that are out at the moment, but obviously not all the books are out. So I don't know what the ending is or what it's going to go. But why it's a nice segue is because what it's actually about. So I am obsessed with this series at the moment. Like I can't, sometimes you read something or watch something and you just like, you're so sad that it's like finished and you like don't know what to do with yourself and you wish there was more of it. And I guess like me talking about it is me like extending kind of like the high from how much I like it. It's just one of those series that I really have really, really enjoyed. Like more than I thought.
Something to look forward to because it's similar to like when Game of Thrones like came to its end or the Harry Potter series and books and movies and stuff. Like actually the good thing about Harry Potter was like after the books had finished, the movie started coming out. So that extended like the whole sort of Harry Potter sort of fascination and fandom for ages. But I think after the last movie came out, it was like pretty sad. It was like, well, what do you look forward to now? But anyway, sorry.
So funnily enough, I rated the first book 5 out of 5 stars. I rated the second book 3 out of 5 stars because it's a bit slower pace. It makes sense why it is the pace it pays for the characters and stuff like that, but it is. But I would still recommend it. And the third book I rated 4 out of 5 for the kind of the same reason. It's a bit of a slow burn. The whole series in general is a slow burn. So if you're into that and you're okay with waiting for like the romance to hit and stuff later, then it's the book for you. Anyways, it is relevant because the main character is a female and she's technically kind of like villainous. Like she's very like, she's kind of the bad guy. She in like fantasy stories, they like to refer to characters as morally grey. And morally grey characters means that they're definitely not the good guys. Like they're not the hero on any traditional sense. They're not necessarily the villain in the story all the time. But they do very questionable things that are very like villain-esque, yes.
They like the type of characters that sort of like sit on the fence and their allegiance could shift one way or the other. And they just make that assessment based on maybe like who's going to win a certain match or war or something like that.
No, it's just like they do things that are very questionable. So generally like it's referred to characters that would like kill for their significant other or something like that. And they would do things that like a villain might do that isn't morally correct. So this character, her name is Dianna, and she is introduced as a villain. She's like the bad guy in the world. So the series is called God is a Monster, and she is a monster. She kills people. Like the opening scene is of her essentially like butchering this guy's mind. Throughout the book, she just kills people without a second thought, regardless of who they are. She doesn't care. But her main thing that kind of like keeps her morale in her and her human side of it, because she did start up as a human before she was a monster, is her love for her sister. So there is something about this like unconditional love where I will end the world for you kind of vibe for her sister that she has. So then her bias comes in that when she ever meets anyone who would like tear the world for someone that they love or care about, like she has a moment of vulnerability where she's kind of like, I get it. Like I empathize with that feeling. So that's where I'm like, oh, that's a nice segue because that's kind of the bias that she brings into the world. She's supposed to be this like cold, ruthless killer as she's introduced, but when she comes across people and she learns that they have someone that they care just as much about as she cares about her sister, where she's willing to do anything and everything for, she has a moment of hesitation because she finds empathy with that.
That's
feeling.
actually a very common element in a lot of plots where there's like you said, a character that does questionable things, but then their sort of human or their sort of
Moral.
redemption is that they're like doing it for the sake of like the younger sibling or a kid or something. And then always what happens in those plot lines is that sibling or sister or family member dies, and then that's like their
their villain origin story.
Yeah, and then they lose all sense of like, I don't really care anymore. Like I'm now sort of just doing what I want and living like without a care. And if I die, I die. But they lose, like you said, any sort of like what's it called? It's like that soft what do you call it? It's like a redeeming. It's like a soft like human-esque
The humanity.
Sort of,
it's just the humanity of someone.
That's it. Yeah.
So the blurb of the book based on Google is 1,000 years ago. So it's fantasy. So these people live like forever. 1,000 years ago, Dianna gave up her life in the desert of Oria to save her dying sister. She called upon anyone who would listen, not expecting a monster far worse than her any nightmare to answer. Now she does what Caden, says monster, ever asks, even if that means securing an ancient relic from the very creature that hunts her. So a little bit more context to that blurb. Caden is also the same type of monster as her. So they're called, I actually can't pronounce this, Igmoritan beasts. For the sake of me not butchering it every time I mention it, the beast, like their monster type is just like this beast. And the way the story is written, it's like the original monsters. So it's really interesting because they introduce like vampires and werewolves and ghosts and all these other like monsters or outer world creatures later on as part of the monster breed. And then they say like the Igmoritan beast is almost like one of the original monsters because like vampires are descendants of that beast and stuff like that. Because like the beast like does stuff where like it feeds on blood to get power, which is like similar to a vampire, but it's like a different thing. The way the characters, the species and the fantasy written in this book is like 5 out of 10 and it's part of the reason why it's actually good. So despite it being very heavily skewed romance, I would say it actually has a very strong plot. It has strong world building. So like the way she's built the world, all the creatures and the characters are so well written, which is actually probably majority of the reason why it's good. And anyone that loves like a devastating, like passionate, strong romance would kind of love this book because both characters that end up being the romantic couple, both of them, like both sides, they're the type of characters that like, I would end the world for you. I would kill anyone for you. If I can't walk, I'll crawl to you kind of energy. Like they put their significant other before anything else. So
that's kind of sweet and romantic in a way.
Yeah, it works in fiction and it wouldn't work anywhere else. Hence the morally grey aspect of it, right? So Dianna is a beast. So her and her sister Gabby, who is the kind of supporting side character that like is that reason why she has that good in her. They actually start off as like normal human or perceived humans is kind of what it's set up as. And then what happens is during is it called plague, when like there's all sickness and everyone's dying?
Like diseases, yeah, plague. Yeah.
Like, yeah, there's like a plague in their country or city or whatever and everyone's dying. Their parents die and then her sister gets sick. and she has like no way of saving her, and she just basically she can't, but then it doesn't tell you in the first book, it tells you later on that she comes across a monster that ends up saving her for whatever reason, and the only way to save her is to go to Caden, who's this like one of the most powerful monsters of this beast origin. He's like, yeah, I will save your sister in exchange for like your service, because he senses like a power from Dianna of something, and then he turns her into a beast, which makes her almost immortal. And he does that by like, I don't know, I actually don't know what the process of turning her into a beast. It's something about like feeding off her blood and then giving her blood, and then her actually surviving the transition, which is very rare because he actually tries to turn a lot of people so that he can build an army of monsters. But most of them either die, don't survive, or they don't transition properly. So they actually turn into like mutated beasts, which are like mindless in like your traditional sense of a monster. Whereas Dianna like retains her memories and her ability to like critically think and stuff like that. So she ends up becoming one of the most powerful and like intelligent beasts. And then she is like sworn to service by him. And the way he keeps in check is he basically threatens her with his sister, which somehow he made her immortal without changing her. And she just lives her life in like the real human world, while Dianna does all Caden's dirty work, which is literally just killing people, getting information. Because the reason he wants to build an army of monsters is because 1,000 years ago, there was something called a God's War. And in the world, in this universe, there used to be multiple gods, and each god would rule like certain planets or certain things. Like there's the god of war and something, for example, a god of romance or whatever. Like multiple gods. And there was a god war for whatever reason. There was one. And then all the gods died as a result of the god wars. So there's like no gods left in the world. But there are still a race called Celestials. And Celestials are God-created humans, essentially, but they have power. And they are literally created by gods. Like,
so they're the closest things to God, essentially.
Like they're not, because they say like, oh, the God gives a piece of them or a piece of their power in order to create a celestial. Like that's the whole thing. Like they're not actually like human having intercourse to have a baby. Like they literally create a celestial, and then the celestial is just like this powerful being. And the celestials left in the world, and it's like said that one of the last standing God, like before the war, he like sent a bunch of people to the safe countries before the war started, and then the war ended and all these gods died. You don't learn until later in the book, but essentially the reason why Caden is scared and wants to build an army is because there actually is one god that's still alive that is a threat to him in the world. But what happened at the end of the gods' war, on top of like all these gods dying, is all the realms, which are all like the different planets and stuff like that, got sealed, which means that you can't travel from planet to planet, which also means any monsters that were in certain worlds and stuff like that were stuck in that world. So they couldn't like see each other and whatever. And Caden, just like a fear of himself dying, his race dying out, is basically trying to build an army in preparation for when the god comes back to be able to defeat him in order for him to rule. Like that's kind of the
So what was the purpose of the gods? Or what were they fighting over? Or we do not know that?
We don't know that in the first book.
Yeah.
Oh, no, we kind of do. So you find out a little bit later, but the surviving god is named Samkiel. S-A-M, Sam, K-I-E-L, Samkiel. But he's also known as Liam. So I'm just going to call him Liam because it's easier for me to pronounce.
That's much easier, yeah.
He calls himself Liam because his mum used to call him Liam, but his actual name is Samkiel. So in the later books, he decides to refer to himself as Samkiel because that's the true god's name. And funnily enough, he's actually also not like the real reason why the God War started, but part of it. So Samkiel was actually destined to be the God King. So the ruler of all gods, because his dad was. And the reason the God War started was because people didn't like allegedly didn't like him, and they didn't want him to be the next king.
Then in like a nepo baby, essentially.
So they wanted no, it's because he's half celestial,
okay.
which is like unheard of.
He's half celestial. She's like a full god.
Yeah, because his daddy did have sexy time with a celestial, and they had a baby. So he was God born, but half of him is celestial.
It's kind of like incestuous almost.
He didn't make that celestial though.
Okay, I was like, the God made this thing and then had a baby with it.
Yeah. Because celestials are like, what are it called? Sentiment. Like they have feelings and whatever. Like they're basically feelings, humans.
Don't they?
Yeah, but they're not like blind robots that just serve the gods.
They have their
like
own
they're almost humans
mind.
as well. Yeah, correct. But when they're created by a god, they kind of are sworn to serve that god as well. And then different gods have different personalities. So some are quite like ruthless rulers and stuff. Some do just treat them like servants.
Do those traits get passed on to the celestials? No.
They just they're their own person.
That's been created by the god.
Yeah. Like literally the only thing they get from the gods, the only thing they get from the gods is power and this like.
But the god has selected to give them, or
not selected. They just created them out of nothing.
Okay, and then that's whatever they become as a not person, but as a being in terms of powers, personalities, all sort of random.
It's their own. Yeah.
Yeah.
But then, like part of it as well is like generally you are sworn to loyalty to that god as well, like biasly.
That's the one thing that they put control over.
Kinda. But the like part of the story later is like Samkiel actually adopts celestials from other gods because he treats them better and is able to recruit them.
This is before the God War?
Yes, before the God War.
Because I'm like, wouldn't he would have to adopt them if there was no other gods left? The parentless, essentially.
So he survives the God Wars, and the God War starts because people are like, he can't rule. Also just his personality, like they're like, he's not fit to rule. But they also fear him because he's so powerful, because he's the God King. Like the God King's the God King because he's like the most powerful God. So he inherits that, and he actually like his power is just like insane. Like there's kind of this metaphor where he takes like lightning from the sky and he controls all the lightning. Like that's kind of his thing. He controls the sky basically. Like he's the power. So when it rains, when it thunders, it's because he's angry. So he's kind of like that level of power. And then the other reason why they scare him, and also the reason the God War ended the way it did, was when a god ascends to like inherit their full power and like truly ascend to like a god level, they go through a ritual where they create like their godly weapon, which is normally like full of light and whatever. But at the time of his ascending, his mother had just died, so he was full of grief. So then he ends up accidentally creating a dark weapon called Oblivion, which is when struck with Oblivion blade, you it's just nothing. So you die and then there's nothing. So it's just like it's scary because it's
KO.
Because it's God, right? So they have like a world beyond death. So most people when they die, they go to this world beyond death. But it's saying like, but in contrast, if you get struck by this blade, it's nothing.
It's a one hit KO. You just go into
nothing. Oblivion. Like that's why it's called.
And that was because he was in grief.
And during the God Wars, what ends up happening is his dad dies in front of him, and that caused him so much grief. And when another god goes to strike him, he just reacts, attacks with Oblivion, touches it on the floor, and then it stops the whole God War and kills everything.
Oh wow! So
and that's how the God War ends, and how his whole planet disappears. So he ends his planet as well, which is called.
It goes into nothing.
It goes into nothing.
Okay.
I forgot what the world is called. Rusharim, which is what his world was. So that's where like most of the gods lived beforehand, but it's gone now.
So they all lived in one planet, or they all lived in different planets?
They also traveled to other planets, but I think that was their main planet. Because before the God Wars, they could all travel between different planets. They called it realms.
And then this is where maybe they all met in
It's like their main
plan not to
council.
fight when they were having
Correct.
the war. And then
Yeah.
Mr. One Hit
but
KO
there's like
with
one.
his Oblivion. Yeah.
He saved like one component of that world, and he rebuilt a small section of it. And then that's where he's been hiding this whole time. So he was overcome with so much grief after the war that he hid himself as a loner, isolated by himself in this, what was left of that planet, in his own little castle, talking to no one, just surviving, just grieving because he just couldn't. And then he had a group of guards called the Hand. The Hand are his most loyal subjects, guards. And these are the Celestials I told you that he adopted, like from other gods and stuff like that, but are also his friends. Like he calls them his family. So they're called Ezekiel, Vincent, Logan, Nevera, Imogen, Cameron, and Xavier. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. There's 7 of them.
Yeah.
And he leaves them on like the equivalent of Earth, but it's called Onuna or something like that in the book. But it's like equivalent of Earth, where humans and stuff. So for them plus all other Celestials to run the world while he just hides and isolates and grieves on this planet by his own. That's the scene, right? And Caden in the background knows that he's still alive, so he's preparing for it. But he doesn't tell Dianna that.
Caden is a Celestial?
Caden is a beast.
A beast, okay.
One of the most powerful beasts.
And how does he know about this god still being alive?
Because he's just as old.
Okay,
Yeah.
all right. So he was
probably there. It's not revealed in the first book how he knows, because it's actually not revealed until the end of the book that he basically knew and hid it from Dianna and all that stuff.
Yeah.
But Dianna did know, and she doesn't understand why he was so obsessed with looking for this ancient relic. He's looking for the Book of Azreal, the title of the book, and the reason he's looking for it is because that tells you how to kill the god. Because you don't know, because a god is almost immortal. Like you could stab him and he'll just like heal. Like he's a god, right? Like you can't kill him. And apparently this book tells you how to kill him. And the reason the book exists is because the world's all about balance. You can't just have someone who's immortal without something.
Like a weakness.
Yeah.
Everyone has a weakness.
Yeah.
Or something.
So that's why the book exists. So that's why he's looking for it, because he needs a way to kill him when he comes back.
Where's the one? Do you know do they tell you where the origins of the book is? Like who made it or who wrote it?
It's called a Book of Azreal because a celestial named Azrael made it, wrote it.
So not the byproduct, but the product of a god made the book.
Azrael was a celestial, not a god, but he was just a very intelligent god.
No, but didn't you say that gods make celestials?
Correct.
And a celestial made this book
Correct.
to kill gods.
Yeah.
Okay. All right.
But he just made it out of knowledge. But he's actually known as someone from back in the day that actually produced weapons for gods. Like that was his whole thing. That was his role.
So
that was technically
his
a
specialty. Oh, yeah. Okay.
Yeah. So that's why it's called the Book of Azreal. And so the Hand are running things. 3 of them are on, I think this like a different planet, running like the whole world, like looking at all the realms, and it's like the council of the main celestials looking at the world, and then the rest of them are on like the main Earth thing to kind of do the day to day. So they're kind of split apart. That's just cause they come together later, but like they're split apart at the start of the book. And what brings Liam back to the world and to like interact again with humans is because during the hunt, when Dianna goes to look for this Book of Azreal for Caden, she accidentally kills one, or perceived as accidentally killing one of the main guards named Ezekiel. And then when a celestial dies, he like prays to God to let him into that afterlife realm. And as part of the names that he reads Samkiel, Liam, and Liam hears it. And he realizes he dies, and he's like, that's impossible. My hand are the best, most trained guards. There's no way for them to die. Like they're almost as immortal as me. Like they can self-heal as well. If you stab them, they also just like heal themselves. So he's like, how's that even possible? That like something must be dire.
Powerful.
Yeah. So then he comes back. So that's how he actually comes back. So he comes back earlier than expected.
What was he waiting for to come back?
He was never going to come back. He was just grieving.
He was just going to be in his own.
He was just depressed. He was literally like a depressed boy in a corner.
Okay. And then got triggered by this event of his hand dying.
Yeah. And he also, like, even though he calls the hand his family, stuff like that, he's just grieving too much. And then he never has an equal. Like that part of the theme in the book is like there's so much tragedy surrounding him because even though he loves his hand as a family, he's also someone they look to. So he's never had an equal. And then all the other gods that were supposed to kind of be there to support him, guide him, mentor him, they're all dead. So he's like alone trying to navigate. He literally has the world on his shoulder because he's God. And he has to like burden that on his own. So it's like quite heavy for an individual. And they say in this world that sometimes you are destined to have a mate who is your destined partner.
Hmm.
And if it's your destined partner, they have a title and a name for it. And you get like a tattoo ring if you like meet them and you go through a thing. It's like your true mate, right? And then he learned early in his life that his mate died, so he would never meet them. And then that's why he's also like, I'm never going to find my equal because my equal had died earlier in life. So added to the layer of like depression. So he's just like being a depressed boy in the corner. And then he comes back because he does care about his family. So like he comes back when he learns about the death of Samkiel. But yeah, so what ends up happening is Dianna actually only accidentally kills him because she doesn't know why Caden's looking for the book or anything like that. So she's just trying to like kill people and get things done. And Caden tells her not to kill him because he was just going to kidnap him to get information. But what actually ends up happening is like during the fight, it's just her and Ezekiel fighting in like a old temple trying to find the book. And Ezekiel and Dianna feel equally matched. But then Caden comes and there's two other monsters in the book called Tobias and Alistair. So they're monsters as well. So they're the same beast type. So they're like Dianna. We don't know if they were turned or whatever, but they're just like they're equivalent Dianna. So they're like intelligent creatures who are beasts as well. So Caden and the two other guys come later in time when Ezekiel and Dianna are fighting. And then you see how powerful the hand is because Ezekiel at the end of it is able to like suppress them in like this like he traps them in this like powerful like ring thing where they're like stuck and can't get out and they're like injured. But somehow Dianna gets out and we still actually don't know why because Ezekiel makes a comment. He's like, there's no way for you to break out of that unless you're and then it dies out. So we don't know why. But she escapes and then she's fighting him, about to kidnap him. And the only way to kill him is to like stab him through his heart and like completely puncture his heart. That's the only way to kill a celestial. And she's about to because she learnt that when Caden came. But before she can kidnap him and stop puncturing his heart and just to capture him, Ezekiel actually takes the knife and like kills himself, like pushes it in. And then that's how he actually dies. But everyone thinks that she kills him. And then for a period of time, she lets everyone believe that because it just adds to her reputation because it works in her favor for everyone to fear her and for everyone to think that she's the scariest. Because if they think she's the scariest, they're not going to do anything to her, which then she can protect her sister better. Like that's ultimately that's her whole objective is just to protect her sister.
Yeah. All right. So the hand essentially killed himself.
He killed himself
because he was anticipating that Dianna, who was able to break out of this force field or ring, might be able to kidnap him and extort information, and so he just kind of decided to lay himself.
He also knows that his death will trigger Samkiel coming back
because he does the pray.
Yeah, and he wants Samkiel to come back because the hand, celestials and gods all thought the beasts were extinct. They thought they died as part of the god war as well because they were just on that planet.
Yeah.
Because they fought in the war as well for gods as well.
Okay. It was like allegiances.
Because they're the only things that could like, kind of like, they were like very dangerous. So that they all thought they'll die. So the fact that Zeko's like, oh my God, there's still beasts alive. Like it's actually more dire than we thought. He basically sacrificed himself to make sure the god came back to like find balance again in the world. So that's what happens. And then he comes back and he is trying to like readjust into society and figure out what's going on. So he's in his main council, and the only people that's in this world, because you know how I said the hands were split across two worlds, like one in a main council, one that does the day-to-day. In the day-to-day, he has Vincent, Logan, Nivera. That's it, because Ezekiel's dead. So Vincent, Logan, and Nivera are the ones kind of like helping him adjust back to the world, because he's from 1,000 years ago. The language has evolved, the styles evolved. So he comes back looking like a hobo, like long hair, tattered clothes, can't speak the language, but he's a god, so he's really smart. So like Logan just shows him a bunch of video for him to learn the language, and he's just like adjusting and like figuring out what's going on. Yeah. And then all the celestials who are like the normal celestials are losing their heads because they're like, oh my God, the god is back. Oh my God, like he's in front of us again like that. And he's just trying to adjust to that. And they're like asking him like what to do about like all these like chaos that's happening in the world because he's God. So again, it adds to that whole like the world is really literally on his shoulder because everyone looks at him to solve everything.
Yeah.
And he's trying to adjust to that. And then while he's adjusting to that, Dianna breaks into the place to try to kill him.
The god?
Yeah.
Oh my God.
Because she finds out that he comes back.
So fearless. Jeez. Yeah. All right.
Because she doesn't care, right? Like she just does anything that Caden wants her to protect her sister. So she manages to break in because one of her powers is she can what's the word? Transform to look like someone else. So she transforms to pretend.
Like
impersonate. Yeah. So she impersonates like another celestial. And then
it's like that Mystique character from X-Men.
Her main power though is fire. It like produces fire and can burn everything. And then when she confronts the god, their first interaction is she's like, you're not so tough. And because he can't speak properly yet, like he's very just like formal English because he just learnt it.
Yeah,
she's like, oh, you're not all that. And you don't look like anything because he looks like a hobo at the moment. So she like steps up to him and burns the whole place down, killing like all these celestials. The whole building like collapses because he reacts so slowly because he just came back to this world. Like he was only like less than a second delayed, and then he realizes, but because he's so powerful, him and the hand survive it, but a bunch of other people die.
Why couldn't the other ones heal themselves? If
they do. Oh, not all of them, but like she's too powerful. Okay. She like burns them to the crisp, like burnt the heart as well, probably.
Okay, jeez, all right.
Like she's really powerful. And then he realized how strong she is. And then he realized, oh my God, the beasts are back. But he's a god, so he survives. And so does a bunch of other things.
Maybe she's like a half god or something. Or
we don't know yet.
Half celestial.
I can already tell you, I'm 3 books in and it doesn't
allude to that.
Yeah. We don't know yet.
Beast. Okay, yeah.
We know she's special. We just don't know why yet. I know a little bit, but I won't spoil it because I'm only talking about the first book.
Yeah.
But then he ends up like bringing himself together, finds her. Long story short, they fight. He is stronger because he's a god. Eats her, captures her. Like he ends up managing to capture her and like cage her up and make her powerless so they can interrogate her to figure out what she wants. Because they don't know why they're back and they don't know that she's looking for that book for Caden. And they don't know that Caden's back either. They don't know anything. So she is the first interaction they have with the beasts because Ezekiel's dead, so he can't tell them anything.
Oh, he couldn't tell about the other ones.
Yeah. So they're just like, oh my God, the beasts are back. She's that. We need to find out what they want, what they're doing, blah, blah. So they kidnap her. They interrogate her. He full interrogates her. He full tortures her. But she's so scared for her sister, so she doesn't speak. Like she just lets herself like
Tortured.
get tortured. And then this like goes for days and days and days and days. But then weirdly enough, like in between this, like kind of you learn about their past, like you learn about why she tolerates all this, how she became a monster and her love for her sister, which I already told you. But then with Liam, he ends up having like nightmares and like remembers like stuff from his past, which is how you learn about the God Wars, his dad's death, his mum's death. But he also remembers something his mum always says, which is when he was like reading about these beasts, his mum always says, like I don't remember the actual quote, but it was basically like, don't judge a book by its cover kind of thing. Like appearances could be deceiving.
Like don't underestimate them, or just like they might be good as well.
They might be good as well. But then his dad has always been the believer of like, no, they're just pure monsters, just kill them straight away.
Yeah. If he's a god though, like, I mean, wouldn't he be able just to read into her mind and just figure out everything? Like, I mean,
he doesn't have that power.
Okay, all right. So I was okay. Yes,
No one can read minds. No one can just like read minds. Some of the powers that exist in the story is Dianna, if she drinks someone's blood, when she dreams, she can see memories and past of that person. Depending on how much blood she drinks of that person will depend on how often she dreams until it runs out. So she can see into people's past. That's how she reads. Like that's the closest thing to her reading mind.
Yeah.
Alistair, one of the other monsters, if he drinks someone's blood, he can read their mind at that point in time and like go through their mind and like try to find secrets and stuff. So he's the most powerful mind-wise.
Yeah.
And then Tobias can raise the dead. So he, I don't know, nothing to do with blood. He can just raise the dead. And then control the dead, like, which is scary because, you know.
Like raise them and then have them as his like servants, slaves. Okay.
So they all have their own power, and Caden can turn people into beasts.
Yeah.
That's his whole thing. So he can create more of him. Where is it up to? Yeah, so she's getting tortured. She doesn't. And then a couple of days pass. They're like, okay, things need to get more extensive. We need to get more people on this. So they transport her into like a main city called the Silver City, which is where there's more celestials where they can hold her properly and interrogate her further.
Yeah.
And during the transport phase, she's actually only guarded in the truck by Logan, one of the other hand. Some context about Logan, because this is important to the story. Logan and Nevera, who is the other hand, so Nevera's a girl and Logan's a boy, not that it matters their gender, but they're mated. Like they're, you know that thing I told you earlier about their partners, their wife.
Stuff,
like they're married, like they're each other's husbands and wife. Like they love each other. Logan, oh yeah, there was like a scene like you learn that they're mated because there's a scene where when Dianna does burn that building, she actually like hurts Nevera quite significantly then. And Logan's like stressed about her. Like that's, and he hates her. Like that's why he wants to like, he wouldn't let Nevera guard her. That's why Logan's like, I will guard her because I would not put my wife at risk.
Yeah.
And Vincent is like Liam's second-hand man that deals with all the politics and stuff like that. So he needs to be just in the council for admin reasons. So Logan ends up like bodyguarding Dianna during the transport. And then essentially what happens is it turns out that Caden, Tobias, and Alacid were going to save Dianna. And the fact that they're transporting them by trucks and only Logan is protecting her was actually all pre-planned by them, because Elastus and Tobias have spies because they took over the minds of like a lot of Celestials and planted the idea that Dianna only needs one hand to like guard her, will take this route, blah, blah, blah. So they know exactly where she is. So they like find her to save her, right? And then the turning point of the storyline is when they go save her, Logan puts up a proper fight because he's the hand and he can take them.
Yeah.
Elastus gets really angry at him and is about to kill him. And then Dianna has a really good read on people. And she like, I don't know, somehow like, I don't know if she reads Logan's like emotions or she eats his blood. Like something happens, but basically when he's about to die, all he thinks about is Nevera and how much he loves her and how sad he is that he's leaving her and how much he's going to grieve because of it. Like his only thought is of her.
Yeah.
And Dianna was like, that's not what people think about when they die. Like she was trying to read to see if he would like expose where the Book of Azrael was and stuff like that, or any weaknesses about the god. But all he could think about was her, which has that moment of her, that human side of her coming out, because she's like,
empathy.
Yeah, because she's like,
whatever.
I would only think about my sister kind of thing. Like
In that moment, near death, yeah.
Like she's like, I will never have that other thing. So then without thinking, she kills Alistair, like saves Logan, kills Alistair, and realizes what she did.
Yeah.
Like she can't undo that. She's like, oh my God, I just betrayed Caden. I'm going to put my sister at risk. Why did I do that whole thing? Tobias runs away because he can't put up that fight. Like he escapes.
Yeah.
And then it's just Dianna and Logan, and then she ends up saving him. Like he's so bloody and beat up, so she ends up carrying him to the Silver City. And then they realize that, oh my God, like the monster saved him. And then that's when it piqued Liam's interest, and it reminds me about what his mum said. Because he's like, if she was a cold-blooded murderer and just a beast, why did she save him?
Yeah.
Like that's so random and it doesn't make any sense. I need to know more kind of thing. And then out of fear for her sister, she ends up negotiating with them by like being like, I can either give you Logan or I can kill him right now. So I want protection, but not for me, for my sister. And then because she's so paranoid, she makes a blood pact with Liam. A blood pact is like literally they like cut themselves and shake their hands, sharing blood. And it's a thing where they can't break, because if they break the promise, they die. Yeah, it's like one of those things. And it like the condition is basically like, you keep my sister alive for as long as she's alive, for as long as she's safe, blah, 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 blah. I will like obey you, like basically be your servant. Because again, we know that she'll do anything for her sister. And like there's a whole thing. She's like, did I just trade one powerful man for another? Like how dumb of me. But she'll do anything for her sister. And so that's what forces the partnership between her and Liam.
Yeah.
And then this is when she does tell them everything.
About the book and stuff.
About the book, why they're looking for it.
Credence's objective and agenda.
Yeah. So now like everyone has the context. And so then they're like, okay, we need to find the book first. So then the second half of the series, the book, is like them going to go look for this book.
Yeah.
And then in the interest of everyone's safety, Liam's like, it's enough for just me and Dianna to go. Because really it's just me and Diana's just there for information.
Yeah.
So then
and they've got the blood oath, so it's not like she'll betray him.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So then a couple of chapters is them like going to go look for the book, and this is kind of like where the romance starts. And it's really cute because again, he doesn't know English very well or their language very well. So like he doesn't understand sarcasm, but she's so sarcastic. Like she'll make jokes all the time. And like he doesn't get it. And then like there's just really funny moments. Like for example, during it, the Celestials clean him up to make him more modernized. Like they cut his hair, trim him, put him a proper suit. And then the first time she sees him again, she's like, wait, why is he hot? When did he get hot? Why is he hot? Like, so you already know that they're probably going to be the love interest. And then during their adventure to find the book, as they find leads and stuff like that, like they just get to know each other more, like just organically. Like she's just really sarcastic and he doesn't get anything, which is just like quite endearing. He calls her, because her full name is Dianna Martins, he always calls her Miss Martins, for example. Like it's just little things like that. And I think it's like very cute. But during the whole thing, like it's an enemy to lover thing. So they like don't really like each other at the start. They just tolerate each other. But then the turning point for their relationship is as they're waiting for one of their leads to go to the next place, they're at like a festival together. And then they just like talk a lot and they flirt a little bit. and then she realizes, she goes, "You've been back on this planet for over a month and you haven't slept once. I've noticed that you haven't slept." And then he's like,
He's a god, though. Doesn't need sleep, does he?
"Well, that's how he survived that long. But everyone needs sleep." And she's
He
like,
probably slept for that time he was in hiding or grief.
and then he was a bit like, "Oh, like she noticed." That's wild that she noticed. And then
Notice or she cares.
he thought she cared, but it was just an observation for her. She didn't actually care. She just made an observation. She just called it out. And then exhaustion basically hit him. And then one day he fell asleep by accident.
Mm.
And then he ended up having nightmares about the past. And he blames himself for like the planet's end and his dad's death and all that stuff like that. And then in his nightmare, he relives it. And then he thinks someone's about to attack him. So then in person, he attacks him. But it's actually Dianna asking him to wake up.
Yeah.
So then he's like choking her. But then he ends up snapping out of it before he like hurts her basically kill her.
Yeah.
And then she's a bit scared of him afterwards. But like she's like, you know, like kind of just recovers. And she goes, "That's why you don't sleep. Because you get like these bad nightmares."
Yeah.
And then his first reaction is like, she didn't die. Like, oh my gosh, she's that powerful. She could wake me up and survive that.
Yeah.
That was his first reaction. And his second reaction was like, oh, now she knows like one of my weaknesses and stuff like that. Because not even his like family knows. And then this is another moment where she shows her kindness because she goes, "Oh, I get nightmares too. My sister used to help me, let me do to you what my sister does." And then she like they do this cute thing where like she rubs his head because like her sister used to like give her like head massages and stuff like that.
Okay.
And then she like goes, "For this, let's call truce for this like partnership while we look for this book. Let us start our relationship again. Let's just like, you know, we don't have to be friends, but let's like not hate each other. Let's just try to be there to make it easier to work together, to be better partners. Like, let's be productive about this."
Yeah.
And she's like, "But then to be productive, you need to be your best self. So I need you to share your burden with me and I will share that load with you so that you can survive this."
Yeah.
She's being very nice. And he's never had that before. And then he doesn't know why, but he does trust her. So then he ends up like talking to her about like his past and his whole thing. And then that's kind of their turning point for their relationship where they actually start actively flirting rather than this enemy to lover thing. Because he's like, "Oh, she's actually nice." And then his first moment for her is during the journey, she like contacts people in her monster world to get leads to try to find the books and find people who will help them. And then they get betrayed multiple times along the way because they're all still working for Caden.
Yeah.
But then during one of the betrayal, the monster tries to kill her. They feed her coffee. It's poison, so she's weakened. And then they shoot an arrow at her. Like they're like in a room. And before she's about to die, Liam like breaks into the room, kills the monster and saves her.
Yeah.
And then he gives her his blood because he knows that she needs blood to survive directly from his wrist for her to like survive. And that's also how we find out more about his past and she learns more about him because she dreams about his memories.
Yeah.
And then that's when she feels for him even more because she understands where the burden and the trauma comes from. But that's his first moment of like protecting her. And then suddenly along the way, as the story progresses, he goes, "Somewhere along the way, I realized that I would burn the world for her." So it's very sweet. Like
reaches a point where he's like in love with her, essentially.
Yeah, but he doesn't admit it. He just goes, there's something about her, but he doesn't realize that he's in love with her. Like he's just like, I just think she's very nice and I want to protect her. But then we know he likes her because like there's another moment where they reunite with like other monsters who are like vampires who happen to be her actual friends. And then she's really friendly with one of the vampire and he gets like full jealous of them and stuff like that. And it's like you just know.
Yeah.
And then what happens like closer to the end of the book is let me just remember the order. Blah, 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 blah. Oh, okay. So what happens at like closer to the end of the book is they find the book. But then it ends up that Caden had set them up to find the book because he had always known where the book was, but he didn't know how to get to the book because it was in a coffin, but they couldn't open the coffin. And we learnt later it's because only Liam / a god can open the coffin.
Yeah.
Otherwise it like stings you and hurts you. And what ends up happening is they find these two people to like lead them into the temple to go to this coffin because along their journey stuff, they find a map and stuff like that of where the book is. And it's like Azrael's daughter, like one of his daughter.
Yeah.
That she's like, yeah, like my mum who's dead now, like left me this map and I wanted to look for it. So it's like her and this other celestial and they go on a journey together and they find it. And then as soon as they find the book, the daughter makes some mistakes and says something, oh, no wonder I couldn't open it. It must be only a god that can open it. And Diana's like, wait a minute, you said you couldn't find this before. How would you know that it was here?
Yeah.
And then she realizes it and she's like, you're betraying me. But then she realizes that like her limbs start falling and stuff. And then she realized that she was already dead.
Oh, so someone was controlling the dead. Okay.
Tobias was there.
Yeah.
Tobias had killed them ages ago and they were actually just rotting bodies. And then along the whole temple thing, because Diana's like, I can keep smelling death, and she didn't realize why.
Yeah.
And then Tobias fights her and Liam for the book.
Yeah.
And then it's a temple full of dead people in the coffin, so he raises all these people to like attack them. So they're like really outnumbered.
Yeah.
So then Liam, Diana make a deal where Liam's like, you get the book and you run, and I'll
deal with everything
hold
else.
Tobias, and then we'll escape together. Like that was the plan. And then that's what's happening. And then Diana, as soon as Diana gets the book, Tobias realizes it. He like escapes Liam, gets to Diana and fights her. And he overpowers her and he's about to kill her.
Who overpowers her?
Tobias, the other beast that works for Caden. And then Liam makes it just in time. And he's like, I will give you the book for her. So they're like, and then Diana's like, why? You're being stupid. Like, I'm not worth anything. Like,
our purpose was for us to find the book, and you got the book.
To save you and the world.
Yeah.
Like, she's like, you can't give up the world for me. And then this is their like love moment.
Yeah.
and he's like, I will give up the world for you. Like, you're worth everything to me, blah, 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 blah. And then Tobias is like, fine, just give me the book and I'll go. And then as they're trying to like exchange something, Diana's like, no, I'm not worth it. And she commits suicide by like pulling out her own heart to like kill herself.
Yeah.
Because then he has no choice. But he panics because he doesn't want her to die. So he drops the book, grabs her, escapes, puts her heart back in.
Yeah.
And essentially like implies that he resurrects her because he's a god. But there's a rule. You're not allowed to resurrection.
Resurrect.
Resurrection comes with a price. Like that's the rule, but you don't know what the price is. That's why no one does it. Because he has a flashback about like what his dad's always talked about how he's loved his mum, and he's like, why didn't you bring her back then?
And he said he couldn't because of blah blah.
Yeah, he's like, there's a price. You don't know what that price is going to be. So he doesn't know. So then we end with like her Diana alive again, Liam saving her again, giving him his blood again for her to survive, and then Tobias escaping with the book, so Caden gets the book, and then Liam's like, it's fine, we're just gonna make a new plan. But then when they get back to, and then they're about to like,
this is the first book.
This is the first book.
Okay, sounds like it's the whole series already.
It's almost the end of the first book. And then what ends up happening is he escapes. No, they go back to the council place to like regroup. And then Logan reappears and is like, Gabby and Nevera are missing. His wife and the sister. because I missed out a whole part. But basically, like they save the sister and they secure her and they protect her by like she lives with the Celestials and all the hands basically protecting her.
Yeah.
Like that's how, like that's why. So they're together. And then Logan's like they're missing, like they've been taken. Skip forward, Dianna and Liam are like in a room and then the TV like starts blurring up and then Caden appears on screen with all these monsters. And then Dianna realizes some of her friends, like her vampire friend stuff, have all betrayed her.
Yeah.
And is the one who gave Gabby away to them, like got to Gabby. I don't see Nevera on screen. She doesn't appear again for the first book. Gabby's on screen. Caden's basically talking to Dianna, basically saying, this is what happens if you betray me, blah, 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 and then kills Gabby on screen in front of Dianna.
Jeez, okay.
And then the end of the book is Liam's like, I think I just lost my Dianna. And Diana's like, I think I just lost my whole world.
Now it's like a revenge story or something now.
Possibly.
Mm-hmm.
That's the end of the first book.
Yeah, I was going to say that's like a lot to put in one book. Like, I thought the whole, like, maybe them finding the book within the book would happen like in the second or third one. But geez, no wonder you rate it the first one so highly because it's actually like so much had happened. And it wasn't just like all context setting and establishing like, the fantasy world. It was kind of that and it was actual plot line. Yeah.
It's so good. Let me end with a few of my favorite quotes now that you know your stories that might entice you to read it. So some funny ones that's mostly from Diana's point of view. She's talking to Liam and she goes, I don't care about Caden's plan to end the world or yours to save it. It's all just one giant cock measuring contest anyways. Because again, she only cares about her sister. And then Liam, during his phase where he doesn't know the language very well and he's still learning sarcasm and stuff, he says about Dianna, her tiny hits barely affected me, but it seems to be some weird form of affection for her. You know, like when people like whack you gently, like playfully? So he's like, it barely affects me. It must be some weird form of affection because he doesn't get it. So I thought that was really funny. But then some really like romantic quotes because at the end of the day, it's actually a romance. She says, you can share your burdens with me. I promise not to judge or ridicule or make you feel less than because of them. Your burdens become my burden. And then Liam, when he starts falling for her, says, I didn't remember how long we talked, but somewhere amidst her laughter and smiles, I decided I would rip the world apart for her. And then he's a god, so he's supposed to put the world first before anyone. But he thinks in one of the chapters later on, I was as selfish and weak as they claim because I hadn't brought her back for the world or even for her. I brought her back because I didn't think I could exist without her.
Oh, it's quite cute.
It's so nice. But yeah, 5 out of 5. First book. First book's definitely a 5 out of 5 for me. Highly recommend. The series in general is like I'm so into it. Even though I rated the later books like less, it's still worth it.
But the first one does set the benchmark so high.
Yeah.
Yeah.
To be honest, the other 2 books are just as good. They're just like slower burns.
Yeah.
Like they drag out certain
The author
things.
used all the ideas in the first one. They're like, all right, now I need to think of other plot lines for the next 2. How many did you say was in the series they're planning?
They're planning 7.
And they've released how many?
There's 3 out at the moment, and the 4th one's due to come out next year.
Okay. All right.
What did you think?
Yeah. Actually, like, to be honest, I'm not really a big, like, fantasy person when it comes to, I don't actually even read books, to be honest. I kind of wait until things come up in, like, TV series or movies. It would be actually interesting if it has become a series that's sort of brought to life on the screen. But yeah, no, it was I mean, it's kind of follows some very generic formulas around like enemies to lovers, even though you said it's not, but technically is. And what else was there? Betrayals and something being very unique about the protagonist in the story, but no one knows why. Like not understanding why she's so powerful, even against a god. So, yeah, I mean, it's all great, but is it completely innovative and brand new? No, but it's definitely interesting. Like I, to be honest, was quite hooked in your sort of recount, and I actually appreciate that because I would never have read the book. So great.
That really is just a quick summary.
Snapshot. That was perfect for me, though.
There's like so much more that happens. Like I would still read the book as long as you're okay with spoilers. I should probably put spoilers somewhere at the front. If you're okay with like knowing what happened now that you've listened to this, you should still read it.
Yeah.
It's a pretty easy read as well. It's probably also maybe 0.5 spice out of 5. There's sexy scenes, but it's not like super spicy. But book 2, it gets progressively more spicy as the book progresses. Like book 2 is more than 3 is even more.
Okay.
As an FYI for those who might not enjoy that stuff. It's been a little while, so we might just go ahead and actually skip to our dessert. Gratitude of the week. So an intentional moment to appreciate the sweet moments of our lives.
Mine is I've actually been looking for like an everyday cap to wear, and I kind of have a bit of an abnormal, but maybe a big head. Hopefully, you can't really tell in the screen. But I finally found like a hat that's like kind of suitable for my head. Hence why I'm wearing it in this podcast. So I appreciate being able to find a hat that looks nice on me that I can wear.
Love it. For obvious reasons, I'm really grateful for this series.
Okay.
It's so good. It's been such a good ride. And then meal prep, goals for the weeks or things we're looking forward to.
What am I looking forward to? Maybe you go first. A bit blank spaced head at the moment.
I like pumpkin flavored things. So I'm looking forward to.
I know what you're going to say.
I'm looking because it's almost Halloween. It's like everything has been pumpkin themed. I'm just excited for like pumpkin spice lattes and other like pumpkin desserts and stuff like that. So that's what it's not really a goal or thing to do, but I guess I can twist it and be like, I'm looking forward to getting like my next pumpkin flavored fix.
Fair enough. I kind of knew as soon as you said pumpkin, and then I knew it was October. I was like, you're definitely going to raise that. That was going to be your, not gratitude, your thing you look forward to. Mine is, I was thinking on the long lines of food. I'm actually like planning on eating Nando's this week. It's been actually a long time, and I am a big fan of Nando's chicken. That grilled chicken with barbecue sauce, can't go wrong with that. Plus the chips with the peri peri seasoning. So it's been a while, so looking forward to it. Small thing, but it makes all the world for me, at least.
Woo! Okay. Well, that's about it. So thank you so much for listening. If you want to hear more recounts of things that we have consumed recently, whether we read or watched it or whatever, let us know. Otherwise, I don't know. Don't let us know. It's fine. Whatever.
Well, we would only really read or watch something if it sparks their interest, Otherwise, we wouldn't have the same energy as how you're recounting this story.
So true.
Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you so much. We appreciate you and thank you for tuning in. Bye.
See you later. Catch ya. Bye.